And, a lot of times we think like changing one aspect of our lives is going to be like the silver bullet to happiness. And certainly our environment plays a factor in our overall feelings of fulfillment. But I think wherever you go, there you are. And you bring your challenges with you, and you bring your insecurities or, your doubts. And there's so much more to what makes you fulfilled as a person than just where you're doing the work from.
Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next chapter with Charlie. Our very special guest today is Sarah Aviram, who wrote a fascinating book, and I'm loving it, called The Scenic Route. Sarah is an international keynote speaker, a leadership consultant, and a former Fortune 500 HR leader. Her talks are about answering the question, does more freedom at work mean more fulfillment? With that, let's bring Sarah Aviram on the show. Sarah, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah, this will be fun. As I was going through our notes, I think a great place for us to start would be for you to sort of go through and tell us about your new book, The Scenic Route, because that book seems to cover much of what you want to tell us today.
Sure, I'm happy to. Yeah, so this book is coming out August 18th. It's called The Scenic Route, following my inner compass across 12 countries in 12 months. And that's exactly what the book is about a year I spent living and working in 12 countries. This was in 2019, and somehow convinced my CEO to let me work remotely for a year. At the time, I was the director of talent development at a New York-based tech company and was doing research on future work trends.
Oh, okay.
And all the trends, even back then, this is pre-COVID, saying that the future of work is going to be remote. That's where things were going. And of course, COVID accelerated that by at least a decade. But I convinced...
Oh, you read this before COVID?
I what? I had this experience before COVID.
You read this before COVID?
Read what?
That
Yes,
the future of work is
the
remote.
research was all showing that. Yeah, this is all pre-COVID. And
Oh,
exactly.
really?
And so I told my CEO at the time, I said, I think this is going to be a future trend that we need to really consider and understand, like, what are the opportunities and challenges of having remote workers, hiring them, letting people work from wherever they want or from home. And so somehow convinced him to let me do an experiment and be the guinea pig. And so in March of 2019, I took off. I worked remotely from around the world. And not only did I do my job remotely, but I kind of did my own little field research project on what was working and not working as a remote worker. And I'm now publishing my second book about that year. The first book was more about the professional side of it, of being a remote worker. And the second one is more the personal side. Exactly.
And that was remotivation.
And the second book, The Scenic Route, is the more personal side of that story. It's kind of more the adventures, the deep self-reflections, what I learned from that year, the people I met, the adventures, the experiences. So it's reads more like a travel memoir, less like a how-to book, which is more what my first one was. And I think it's a lot of fun. And for someone that likes a travel memoir, likes to reflect on their own stories and what they may have gained from their life experiences, I think they'll enjoy it.
Great. So tell me about on your trip. What were you taking notes?
I kept a journal from the whole year. I also was writing blogs. So I was writing blogs, both about the professional and personal side of things. And in the last 6 years since that trip, I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements at companies about the world of remote work, as also navigating through change and uncertainty. And I found that anytime I would incorporate a story about travel, because travel can teach us a lot about how to navigate uncertainty. You miss a flight, you miss a plane, you're speaking a language you don't speak,
Right.
the food is different. Everything about your routines is being challenged in a way. So I always felt that travel is a really interesting, concentrated period of change. And we can learn a lot about our capacity to adapt in times of travel. And so anytime I would kind of add a story into my keynote talks for organizations about travel and what it can teach us about adaptability, I found that the audience was really engaged. And I thought, maybe I have a second book in me that's not so much like the professional side,
Yeah.
but these personal stories about what I learned from my own travels around the world. And that's kind of how the book came to be.
Tell me
Yeah.
two or three of your
So
key learnings that you had personally.
the first chapter is Peru, which was the first country that I was in. I was in Lima, Peru. Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Oh, really? I
And
love Peru.
I ate in one of the
Yeah.
most kind of revered restaurants in the world that exists in Peru, which is called Central. And Central is a fascinating restaurant because they give you, it's a multi-course meal, and each dish represents a different ecosystem in the country of Peru. So from the Amazonian waters to the
Oh, really?
like a little higher Pacific Ocean to the Andes Mountains. Like there's just so many different climates and elevations in Peru, and each grows its different kinds of produce and crops and incredible food and ingredients that no one would really think to cook with. And the chef of that restaurant really tries to incorporate them all. So each dish, they say like this dish is from 500 meters. This dish is from 1200 meters. This dish is, and it's kind of like what they call a vertical journey. And I remember thinking like, ooh, a vertical journey. Like that is such an interesting concept. And it made
Oh,
me think
really?
about how most journeys are horizontal, right? We kind of like see time as
Yeah.
linear. We see us like accomplishing things as we move along in a horizontal way, kind of through life. And that more or less meaningful than a vertical journey, which would be like maybe fewer experiences, but diving into like the depths of each one. And there was something kind of poetic about thinking about that because that was the first chapter of my book. And I was thinking like, how will I know this year will have been a success? Like how many memories should I collect? How many stories? How many experiences? And I kind of, that realization got me out of like the checkbox kind of mentality and more into like, how do I want to feel and what do I want to experience in a deeper way, not just like checking the box or the bucket list of experiences for the year. So that was kind of one of my nice big and first learnings from the year.
Which countries did
Yeah.
you enjoy the most? Did you find
I loved
maybe,
Japan
there's
was a
an
fascinating
enjoyment and there's a
country to
learning
me. I was in
factor that is
Kyoto for a
going on in
month,
each one of them.
and
Maybe
just
they're
culturally,
different.
it's very different. I'm a New Yorker. It's a very individualistic culture here in America, and Japan is all about the community, all about doing what's best for the group, harmony, and so
Oh
there were
my
so many
goodness, yeah.
fascinating experiences I had that were really small, but they told me a lot about Japanese culture. Like, even if you're waiting to cross the street and you're walking, even if there's no cars in sight, if the pedestrian light doesn't tell you to cross, you don't cross. You just stay on your corner. That would be unthinkable in New York, right? We're just always jaywalking and crossing the street and swerving in between taxis.
Oh,
But again, it's
really?
just like it keeps people safe, it keeps people aware, it's doing what's best for the collective. I went to a gym in Kyoto to work out, and you can't wear your outdoor shoes inside the gym. You have to have a separate pair of indoor shoes for cleanliness purposes. Yeah. And, it's something you're like, oh, that's kind of annoying. But then you appreciate it once you do it because you're like, oh, the floor's not dirty.
Oh,
I can
really?
lie down and stretch and I won't get mud in my hair or whatever it is. So I just found it to be a very,
Sure.
these small little kind of rules or etiquette or tradition that makes it very unique. And I enjoyed that experience and learning that.
Yeah, we vacationed in Japan last year or the year before. I can't
Hmm.
remember, and it was
Yeah.
fascinating. We went Tokyo and then Kyoto and then a couple of places around. We traveled around the island, and we were on a cruise, and they had a guest speaker that just told
Yeah.
us all about the culture of Japan and how the cultures
That's
are
cool.
so different from the West. This was a Canadian diplomat
Yeah. Yeah.
who told us this, and it just was the whole idea of the collective versus the individual, and
Yeah. I would say
we're
so.
so
Definitely up
individually
there.
oriented in the United States, probably
Hmm.
more than any other country, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that makes a whole difference in the way you observe culture and work with people. The one thing I noticed though, but remember, we've got cruise has these docks, and so they're gonna,
Mhm.
so they dock, and they dock right in the most
Yeah.
populated touristy areas. So everything's really crowded, and I don't get a chance to go outside of the touristy areas. And so, what my experience of Japan was crowds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Japanese people, and where I
Yeah.
was,
For sure.
on a
I
cruise, a lot
understand
of
that. Yeah.
tourists. So, you know, that's a downside of cruising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get to experience the culture the way you experienced it. I like, I change, I changed, I read this, I read this quote somewhere and then sort of made it my own, but I no longer take vacations to sightsee. I take pilgrimages
Yeah.
to explore the wonder of different locations. And it's just funny what that mindset
Hmm.
difference is. I mean, I've done enough travel that I don't need to sightsee. I don't need to see the Eiffel Tower or anything like it.
Yeah.
I want
That
to
is a
see the
great quote. I like
outskirts
that
of
a lot.
Paris and get a feel for the
Yeah.
people and the culture and what's going on. And it sounds to me like you got to do that. Isn't it cool? Yeah. What did you find? What did you find that's how do I phrase this? Values or practices, lifestyle
Hmm.
practices that are truly American that are
Yeah.
not
Certainly the one we just spoke
found
about
in
with
other
Japan was, I
cultures
think,
or not
biggest,
as popular in other cultures.
the
I've
biggest
never
one I
thought of
can
that
think
question, so
of.
that's a hard question.
Um, every country has different subtleties. Like I was in Croatia, and the pace of life is different. It's slower. It's taking your time. You go for lunch with your colleagues, you sit for an hour or two. It's not the hustle and bustle. Again, I live in New York, so it's I'm comparing it to that, but the hustle and bustle of life that's just so different. In other places, it's like, you know, you you enjoy your life a little differently. You take more time, you
Oh
slow
my
down. And
goodness, yeah.
so it was nice to see that in other places. And it's something I thought I should bring that back to New York when I go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the idea of lunch in
Yeah.
Europe, I spent a lot of time in Europe.
Yeah.
The idea of lunch in Europe and lunch in the States, lunch in the States is limited to an hour, especially if you're in a working environment.
It's so
But
nice.
lunch in Europe is, a
Exactly.
90
Yeah.
minute to 2 hour deal where they're just taking the time off. They don't they don't feel like
Yeah.
they have to be productive every second of the day. And
Yeah. So
that fits right
um,
into
one
your
of the
idea
big
of
takeaways for me
freedom
from that
versus
year was so
fulfillment.
many of,
Tell me
including
about
myself,
that.
so
Tell
many
me about
people I
freedom
met, the
versus
remote workers I
fulfillment. Tell
met,
me about the philosophy.
thought that being able to do their job remotely would make them feel more fulfilled at work, more driven, perform better, and just fulfilled in life. And certainly it did to a certain extent. But I found that it was a short term solution. Because if you hate your job in Houston, you'll hate it in Hanoi. And, a lot of times we think like changing one aspect of our lives is going to be like the silver bullet to happiness. And certainly our environment plays a factor in our overall feelings of fulfillment. But I think wherever you go, there you are. and you bring your challenges with you, and you bring your insecurities or, your doubts. And there's so much more to what makes you fulfilled as a person than just where you're doing the work from. And I think when the pandemic hit and so many people were remote after this trip I had, I noticed the same trend that people felt like, oh, if I could work from home, like I'll be happier. Like I don't want to go back to the office. And then they find themselves sitting at home, and it's not for everyone. Some people are lonely. Some people are not as productive. Some people miss the camaraderie of being with colleagues. So it's not a solve all for everyone. Depends on your life situation. And so that I did a TED talk on this topic. The question was like, does more freedom at work mean more fulfillment? And to kind of really challenge the assumption we make that if I had more freedom and flexibility, I'd be more fulfilled. And it's not always the case. Some of us work better with structure, with community, with the camaraderie that comes from seeing people in person. And some of us don't. And so it's kind of an interesting question to think about, to deliberate, and to understand for each person, like, is that true or not?
That fits right into my lifestyle because, I'm retired and it's just my wife and I, so there's nobody in the house. My son is going to turn 34 in a couple of weeks, and so
Yeah.
he's out and about, and so the challenge is,
Yeah.
what do I do each day when I have nothing to do?
Okay.
Nothing. What do you do when you have nothing you have to do? And
Okay.
Sarah, that's a
All
challenge.
right. That's entertaining.
That's a challenge. So one thing I do,
I get it. I
I
get
go
it.
to a lot of movies.
My
If you
mom
want to ask what a
just
movie
retired
is
last
about,
week,
ask
and
me.
she
I'll tell you because I've
is
seen everything out there.
she's a little nervous about what she's going to do with her time.
Yeah.
Yeah. She, it's important to feel a sense of purpose and excitement about your day. And you think like having all the freedom and flexibility is what you want. And then sometimes you're like, well, what am I going to do? So it's important to find.
What do I do with it now? Now I have to make a decision. Now I have to do something. I know. I've dealt with the question. It's been a while since I've dealt with it, but I seem to find the same question of just like your mom. When you first retire, it's nice for a couple of weeks or a month, and then all of a sudden, you say, I've got an open calendar. There's nothing on my calendar, and I don't know what to do. I don't, So it's like I have no structure. And I have to be creating. It's like, there was a question that you when we were talking on the phone that you talked about, and you said, does more novelty bring freedom? And your trip around the world is a perfect example. I think I read, or you told me, that the first few months, and in my word, you didn't use the word novelty, but it was very novel and very different. After a few months,
it's
even the
interesting.
novelty wore off. And novelty,
by month, I would say it was like 8 or 9.
Does not automatically
I was kind of like, I'm tired. Like I'm tired of. And it's hard to say that when you feel so grateful and privileged to have the opportunity to do a trip like this. But I was like, I'm tired of moving every month, a different apartment, a different language, a different culture. Finally finding a cafe I like, and then moving to the next country the next month. Of feeling like I need to seize every moment and make the most of every opportunity, and feeling guilty for the days where I just kind of want to sit and do nothing when I feel like, oh, I should be out there exploring, I'm only here for a month. So I got to this point in Croatia where I would just sit every day at 6 p.m. and watch the sunset. Our co-working space in that city was right across from the Adriatic Sea, and we would just, at 6 p.m., which would have been like the equivalent of lunchtime in the U.S., in New York at least, we would kind of say, all right, we're going to take our lunch break and go watch the sunset across the street. And we'd kind of sit there with these new friends I made. We'd watch the sunset, and I would think like, wow, like this is an incredible ritual. This is a beautiful routine to have. And there was something very calming and peaceful about not looking for something new to do every day that month, but instead actually having a routine that I wanted to come back to. each day. And I think that's where my realization was like, I'd been overestimating, how much novelty I needed to feel like alive, and underestimating the beauty of routine and the beauty of ritual and shared ritual. And it made me slow down and think, like, what are the kind of routines in my life that I want to change or adapt or create that can feel meaningful and beautiful, even if they're not different every day. And so that was a really nice perspective and lesson for me.
That's what I so agree, because I have a morning routine that I
I
do
try
every
to
morning that
exercise
has to
every
do with
morning. For me,
journaling
that's
and
important.
meditating
If it doesn't happen in the
and
morning, I typically
praying,
don't
and
do it, or I
it's
don't want to do
it's a
it
couple
later.
hour routine.
And it already
What do you
gives me,
have a regular daily
yeah, I
routine
usually
that
go
you
to the gym.
use?
Yeah. Or I live near Central Park in New York, so I go for a walk in the park, just something. Um,
Sure.
and you already start the day off kind of feeling invigorated and feeling like a sense of
So do
accomplishment
you
because
go
you've
to a
done
gym
something
to
good for your
exercise?
body, for your mind. So that's something I like to do. I must say I have fallen off with my journaling that I was doing uh, daily when I was traveling. And so more recently, I got out of the habit, and it's hard to pick it up again. And I know any day I could just grab it. It's not a big deal. But, once you get out of that habit, sometimes, you kind of forget how valuable it was. And I remember when I journaled how clear my thinking got, how well, I don't know, I almost had more creative ideas, and you
Oh,
get
that's it.
everything out of your head and down on paper, anything that's kind of going on in your mind, and you're able to think clearer. So I, it's a good reminder that I should get back into it.
Yeah, I get that. I'm in this after effects. I call it my
Mm,
post radiation. I had prostate radiation, and my
yeah,
post radiation after effects, which is fatigue and mind fog. Well, the fatigue is has dissipated, but the mind fog is not totally dissipated. And
yeah,
so I just don't journal as much. And my journaling, I blog weekly. And I would say
yeah.
in the
That's
past, 50% of my blogs came from a journal.
hmm
There was something, because I would write,
yeah,
1 page journals, and,
yeah,
I would type, on my iPad. It's my journal is my iPad. And I could just transfer those over, and then convert them. It
yeah.
wouldn't be word for word. I would convert them to a blog. And
hmm
I still am about a month away from you know losing
Yeah,
this brain
yeah,
fog, and it's really frustrating.
yeah, for sure.
And
That's challenging.
so I'm not journaling as much. I'm not doing my routine as regularly. So
Yeah, yeah,
physical conditions can impact that. So yeah, but it's just another phase. So
yeah.
what do you do if you're not doing
I mean, for me,
if
my
you're
work
not
is
doing
quite
your
fulfilling. I am a speaker and an
if you're
author,
not
so
doing your
anytime I
routine,
can, and maybe
what
that's why
else are your
I've been
habits to
journaling less
find
because I've been
fulfillment in your
writing
life
a lot in other
that
ways.
that our audience would
um,
love to hear?
yeah. um, but it's a little different, of course. When you're writing something someone's going to read versus something they won't, you definitely approach it differently. And so I know getting back, to
Oh, well,
journaling
that
is
yeah.
important. Um, but I just do things that feed my soul. I love going to the theater, so I do a lot of that. That makes me feel happy and fulfilled, and being with friends and family and those kinds of simple joys are definitely what keep me fulfilled and going. Yeah, yeah. Got lots of theater here. It's great. Hmm. Oh, what was the last show I
See,
saw?
that's what you have in New York that I don't
Um,
have. You have theater, and I have movies, but you have
I
theater.
saw a great musical it's based on a movie from the 90s called Death Becomes Her.
What was the last show you saw?
Yeah, it's a movie from the 90s with Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn and Bruce Willis. And they turned it into a Broadway musical. And it's a very bizarre movie. I mean, but they made into a hilarious musical that's won so many awards. And it was so fun and so entertaining. And I was
Oh,
shocked at how
really?
good it was. That was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, there's a couple new plays out that seem interesting. We get them, and I live in Orange County, which is
Yeah,
we're about 45 minutes south of LA, and you go into LA and then you hit all the traffic and all that. So
yeah.
we have our local theaters that there's two or three theaters that I go to plays because I love live entertainment.
I haven't.
Um,
No,
and I
no.
love the theater. I think it's so fun to go to and to watch. But it's been, as I think about it, it's been a while. Oh no, we saw the Harry Potter. Did you see the Harry Potter play? Yeah, it's all
Hmm.
there's actual real life magic that's going on in the show. There's people. It's
Wow.
like you're sitting there, and as I'm watching you right now, without me, I can't detect
That's
the
great.
change, but you could automatically be another
Very
person.
interesting. Great.
And that's the way it goes on stage. One person becomes another
Nice.
person, and you don't see the character change. So the person change. They've done some
I like
some
I like
fascinating magic
musical
on that
theater.
show,
Yeah.
on that theater production. That was that was really interesting. Yeah, I love theater. Is there
Okay.
a type of theater that you
All
like
right.
other
That's
than
great.
over others?
Lots of good dramas in New
Drama or
York. You'll have to.
comedy?
I said you'll have to check out some plays in New York sometime.
Yeah, I do too, but I'm probably more of a drama guy. That
It
fits a film
is.
that I recommend people. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I dare go into New
Thank you.
York,
Likewise.
it is, it is a world of its own.
Thank you.
New
Yeah.
York is a
Either
unique
way,
place.
you can say either one, but yeah, it's available on Amazon anywhere books are
Yeah.
sold. The Scenic Route by
Well,
Sarah
Sarah, it's
Aviram.
been such a delight chatting with you.
You can pre-order it now. Yeah,
And I
it
really
won't come till
encourage
August
people to check
18th.
out your book, The
Yeah,
Scenic
but you can
Route.
pre-order it now.
Scenic Route, you call it. Uh,
Thank you, Charlie. Likewise, I appreciate it.
it's been such a delight. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. It's such a pleasure having you with us. And just to say, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.